Magandang araw sa inyong lahat. I'm Miss Patrice A. Flores or Ma'am Pat, and I will be discussing the modules of Psychological First Aid for you students. Kumusta na kayo? Kumusta na kayo sa mga panahong ito? Handa na ba ang ating isipan ngayong nagbukas na ang ating klase? Ready na ba kayo para sa ating panibagong proseso ng pag-aaral? Talaga nga namang mahirap ang pinagdadaanan natin ngayon. At hindi natin may aalis ang pangambang ating nararamdaman dudulot ng pandemyang ito. Malaki ang naging pagbabago sa pamamaraan ng edukasyon at pag-aaral ngayon. Alam natin na mahirap ito hindi lamang para sa amin at sa iba't ibang uri ng tao, ngunit pati na rin lalo sa inyong mga estudyante. Nariyan ang stress, anxiety, at sari-saring emosyon na minsan ay hindi natin maipaliwanag at nakakapagpabagabag sa atin. Kung kaya narito kaming inyong mga guro upang iparamdam sa inyo na hindi kayo nag-iisa. Narito kami upang tulungan kayong magkaroon ng peace of mind at sama-sama nating maiibsan ang paghihirap na ito. Dahil mahalaga sa mga panahong ito na mapangalagaan hindi lamang ang ating pangangatawan at kalusugan, ngunit pati na rin ang ating mga mental health. Upang maisakatuparan ito, ang Department of Education sa pamamagitan ng Disaster Risk Reduction Management Services o DRRMS, katuwang ang Psychological Association of the Philippines ay bumuo ng mga module. At ito ay ang tinatawag nating the 2020 Online and Self-Guided Psychological First Aid Modules, supplemental to the SHS Manual. Ma'am, ano po bang ibig sabihin ng SHS Manual? Ang ibig sabihin ng acronym na yan ay Supporting, Enabling, and Empowering Students Manual. Ang mga module na ito ay nakatutok o nakafocus sa inyong mga estudyante. So, here are the authors of the module. This module consists of 4 modules. Ito ay ang mga number 1, validating and normalizing feelings, which we shall discuss today. Number 2, calming down and managing one's emotions and thoughts. Number 3, identifying and addressing needs. And the 4th module is the sources of strengths. Before we start with the module number 1, kailangan nating maghanda. I want you to get your notebook, a piece of paper, a ball pen upang sagutan ang mga katanungan o gawin ang mga activity na nakapalagay sa module 1. So, are we ready? So, the objectives for the module number 1 is that, or are, by the end of the session, you should be able to, number 1, identify feelings, reactions related to the pandemic or any form of disaster. Number 2, accept that all feelings and reactions are normal and valid. Kumusta ka na? Ito ay simpleng katanungan na madalas nating naririnig. Ngunit, madalas din nating ini-ignore o napakababaw na katanungan lamang ito. Pero meron sa iba o sa ibang tao na kapag kinamusta mo ay napakalaking bagay na sa kanila. Dahil ang pagtatanong ng kumusta ka na ay isang pamamaraan upang maipabatid sa isang tao na concerned ka. Hindi ba't masarap sa feeling na meron kang alam na isang taong nangangamusta sa'yo o concerned kung ano ang nararamdaman mo? So we have activity 1. For activity 1, pause, think, and write. Stop for a moment and allow yourself to go back what you have felt these past few days, weeks, and months. During the months of lockdown specifically, what were the 5 routines, or 5 reactions you felt or experienced at home. Then, later on, you can explain why you felt that way or why you reacted that way. You don't need to write a long letter. A short one will do. So, for the front page of your one whole sheet of paper, you will submit this kapag ibabalik na ang mga modules nitong PFA. Kasama nung module 1, you will pass this one whole sheet of paper wherein you answered all the activities and all the questions embedded in this module. For the front page of this activity, my dear friend, and then write down or list down 1 to 5 the reactions and emotions you have felt. And then, so here are the examples of this activity. I slept most of the time. I was bored, so I watched YouTube every day. Nothing, I help in the household chores. Number them 1 to 5, yung mga madalas na routine. Ibig sabihin, yung mga madalas yung ginagawa during the months of lockdown. And then, the 5 emotions you usually feel nitong mga nakaraang buwan kung saan hindi tayo pwedeng lumabas at limitado ang ating mga pwedeng gawin at nasa loob lamang tayo ng ating mga bahay. So I will give you a few minutes to finish this activity. And another example of feeling would be, I felt bored or I felt afraid. Others may say I experienced anxiety. You can repeat your feelings, but you may not repeat the routines or reactions. Here is a quote. You don't have to be positive all the time. It's perfectly okay to feel sad, angry, annoyed, frustrated, scared, and anxious. Having feelings doesn't make you a negative person. It makes you human. So it is okay to feel all those negative vibes or all those negative emotions because you are only human. You have the right to feel that way. Doesn't mean na you feel fear or you develop anxiety. It makes you less as a human. Hindi. Nagpapakatotoo ka lang at talagang yun ang response natin dahil sa sitwasyon na meron tayo. Okay, so are you done? Okay, I'll give you a few minutes pa. Let's begin na. The common reactions of students to stressful events are feels a strong responsibility to the family. Feel anxious brought about by uncertainty of the future. Madalas nating iisipin, panigurado ako dito sa statement na to. Noong mga panahon ng lockdown, madami sa inyo ang nag-iisip, paano kaya kami babalik sa school? Paano yun may sakit? Paano kaya kami tuturuan? Ano kayang mangyayari sa school? May kita ko pa ba yung mga classmate ko? Yung mga friends ko na madalas kong kasama sa canteen? You feel intense or prolonged grief for not being able to wake. You may become self-absorbed and feel self-pity. You may experience changes in their relationship with other people. May also start taking risks, engage in self-destructive behavior, have avoidant behavior, and become aggressive. You may experience major shifts in the view of the world, accompanied by a sense of hopelessness about the present and the future. You may become defiant of authorities and parents while they start relying on peers for socializing through social media. When we say defiant of authorities, meron mga iba na dahil nga hindi na sila nakakalabas, talagang gumagawa sila ng paraan. At sa paggawa nila ng paraan na ito, ay meron silang nalalabag na batas. You may feel guilty and anxious having been separated from their loved ones due to lockdown. Meron yung iba na stranded sa ibang place at hindi sila makauwi sa kanilang mga probinsya. Analysis. What are the common feelings to the usual routines of your everyday life? And number 2, what are your shared human experiences of COVID-19 or the disaster that hit your town? Are they similar? So, may similarity ba sa mga naramdaman nyo doon sa mga nasabi ko? The answers in these questions will be written on your one whole sheet of paper then. You can write it on the space below the activity 1, or you can also write your answers on another sheet of paper kung hindi na siya kasya. So I will give you a few minutes to process these questions and answer it. Okay, so are we done? So for the Module 1 handout, this is entitled When Terrible Things Happen. We have the immediate reactions listed below. These are a wide variety of positive and negative reactions that students or people can experience during and immediately after crisis situations. And this include, we have different domains: the cognitive, the emotional, the social, and physiological. For the negative responses under the cognitive domain is confusion, worry, self-blame. Kasi nga, meron tayong mga ibang miyembro ng pamilya na lalo na nitong lockdown is nawalan tayo ng source of income o trabaho. Kaya madalas tayong nag-iisip ng paraan kung paano natin maitatawid ang araw-araw. So for positive responses, we have determination, courage, optimism, and faith. These positive responses, optimism, determination, faith, is usually linked to our pagiging Pilipino. When we say pagiging Pilipino, kilala kasi tayo bilang resilient. Ibig sabihin, kahit na binahana yung bahay natin hanggang bubong, we have the courage to smile. We have that optimism na kaya natin to. We have the faith na bukas tawid din natin ang paghihirap na ito. For the emotional, the negative responses naman is shock, sorry, grief, sadness, pagkatakot or fear, anger, numb, irritability, guilt, and shame. Positive responses naman, feeling involved, challenged, and mobilized. Kung napapansin nyo, nitong mga nakaraang lockdown kung saan marami ang Pilipinong naghihirap at hindi tawid ang isang araw is nawala ng trabaho, nawala ng source of income, meron tayong mga ibang mamamayan o kapwa na kung meron silang sobra is nagbibigay sila ng relief goods upang makatulong sa mga ibang kamag-anak, kapitbahay sa kanilang mga barangay. For social naman po, we have negative responses, fights with others or does not speak with others. And for positive responses, seek out others who can help them and help others in need. So, vice versa. For physiological naman po, negative responses, we have tiredness, headache, muscle tension, stomach ache, difficulty sleeping, and fast heartbeat. Madalas, nalamdaman nyo ba madalas na hindi na kayo nakasunod sa inyong sleeping pattern or putol-putol ba ang inyong pagtulog o yung iba nag-oversleep? And for positive responses under physiological is alertness, readiness to respond, and increased energy. Kung papansin nyo, marami ang nag-bake, marami ang mga nagtanim, bilang ito ang naging outlet nila nung lockdown. Dahil nga na tayo ay nasa bahay-bahay lamang natin, madalas naiisip pa natin gawin kung ano yung mga bagay na hindi natin nagagawa noon. At ngayon na may time tayo, gusto natin siyang gawin at ma-fulfill ang mga bagay na ito. So, we have increased energy. The common negative reactions that may continue. Intrusive reactions are distressing thoughts or images of the event while awake or dreaming. Upsetting emotional or physical reactions to reminders of the experience. Feeling like the experience is happening all over again. Flashback. Avoid talking, thinking, and having feelings about traumatic events. And avoid reminders of the events, places, people connected to what happened. Restricted emotions, feeling numb. Feelings of detachment and estrangement from others or social withdrawal. Madalas ayaw na nating makipag-usap and ayaw na rin nating makisalamuha sa ibang tao. Kaya lumalayo ang ating communication or interaction relationship with them. Loss of interest in usually pleasurable activities. Physical arousal reactions. Number 1 is constantly being on the lookout for danger, startling easily or being jumpy. Irritability or outbursts of anger, feeling on the edge. Difficulty falling or staying asleep. And problems concentrating or paying attention. Madalas ba kayong hindi nakakatulog o nagkakaroon na ba ng panibagong pattern ang inyong pagtulog o nagkakaroon na rin ba ng problema sa inyong concentration? Reactions to trauma and loss of reminders or lost reminders. Reactions to places, people, sights, sounds, smells, and feelings that are reminders of a disaster. Reminders can bring on distressing mental images, thoughts, and emotional physical reactions. Common examples include sudden loud noises, sirens, locations where the disaster occurred, seeing people with disabilities, funerals, anniversaries of the disaster, and television radio news about the disaster. Here are the positive changes naman in priorities, worldview, and expectations. Enhanced appreciation that family and friends are precious and important. Meeting the challenges of challenge of addressing difficulties by taking positive action steps, changing the focus of thoughts, using humor, acceptance. Shifting expectations about what to expect from day to day and about what is considered a good day. Shifting priorities to focus more on quality time with family or friends. Increased commitment to self, family, friends, and spiritual religious faith. When a loved one dies, the common reactions include number 1, feeling confused, numb, disbelief, bewildered, or lost. Feeling angry at the person who died or at the people considered responsible for the death. Strong physical reactions such as nausea, fatigue, shakiness, and muscle weakness. Feeling guilty for still being alive. Intense emotions such as extreme sadness, anger, or fear. And increased risk of physical illness and injury. Decreased productivity or difficulties in making decisions. Having thoughts about the person who died even when you don't want to. And longing, missing, and wanting to search for the person who died. Children and adolescents are particularly likely to worry that they or a parent might die. Children and adolescents may become anxious when separated from caregivers or other loved ones. What helps in this kinds of situation or scenario? Talking to another person for support or spending time with others. Sometimes talking to a person it somewhat helps para maintindihan mo yung nangyari or parang mas ma-accept mo pa kung bakit nangyari yon. Engaging in positive distracting activities. Hanap ka ng ibang outlet which should be positive such as sports, hobbies, reading. When we say distracting activities, ito yung mga outlet or mga bagay na pwede mong gawin para medyo makalimutan mo throughout the process kung ang konti-konti yung mga nararamdaman mo na nagko-continue mong naramdaman. Dito yung mga activities na makakatulong sa iyong health, sports, to be physically fit, yung hobbies na yung such as reading na nakakatulong sa inyo para malawak pa ang iyong vocabulary, for example. Getting adequate rest and eating healthy meals. Trying to maintain a normal schedule. Scheduling pleasant activities. Taking breaks. Reminiscing about a loved one who has died. Sometimes reminiscing about a loved one na nawala is or helps you have that positive feeling. Lalo na kung ang i-reminisce mo is hindi yung exact pangyayari kung paano siya nawala. You should reminisce on the things na or yung mga moments na nagkaroon kayo na nakakapagpasaya sa'yo. Focusing on something practical that you can do right now to manage the situation better. Using relaxation methods such as breathing exercises, meditation, calming self-talk, and music. Participating in a support group. Sometimes these support groups will help you validate your feelings na kung saan, okay lang palang maranasan ko to kasi nararanasan din ito ng iba. Yun yung naidudulot ng support group. And they could give you advice na, ganito ang dapat mong gawin. Dapat ganito. Kasi, meron kasi yung times na itong support group natin ang magiging pagbubuhasan natin ng mga nararamdaman natin o magiging diary natin kung paano natin mababawasan yung mga naipon ng feelings sa loob natin. Exercising in moderation, keeping a journal, and seeking counseling. You could talk to your guidance counselor. What doesn't help? Using alcohol or drugs to cope up with the situation. Alcohol, drugs, and smoking could never bring good or could never bring any good to you. Mas lalo ka lang nitong hihilahin pababa. Extreme withdrawal from family or friends. Your family is your number one support group. And then, second to your family are your friends, your true friends. Overeating or failing to eat, withdrawing from pleasant activities, working too much, violence or conflict, doing risky things such as driving recklessly, substance abuse, and not taking adequate precautions. Not taking care of yourself. Extreme avoidance of thinking or talking about the event or death of a loved one. Minsan kasi kung hindi natin sinasabi at lagi nating iniiwasan ng isang bagay, mas lalo tayong nai-stuck doon sa situation na yon. Mas lalo tayong nababaon at hindi natin nababawasan yung na ipon na sa loob natin. Excessive TV or computer games which gives you or which makes you an unproductive person. Wala ka nang nagagawa, hindi ka na pumapasok, hindi ka na nag-aaral, computer games ka lang ng computer games. Although computer games could be a great or could be a good outlet. Pero excessive or too much computer games is never a good thing. Blaming others. For abstraction and reflection, now that you knew that what you were feeling or how you were reacting was similar to the ones on the list that I have discussed, How do you feel now about yourself? Ano ang mga naging realization mo doon sa mga emosyon na naramdaman mo, yung mga bagay na naramdaman mo o na-experience mo noong time na, for example, nawala ang yung loved one or yung mga trauma na naranasan mo after nung nangyari ang isang event na hindi natin inaasahan or itong lockdown. For application, today you learned that our reactions to stressful events of pandemic or any other form of disaster were normal and valid. So, I want you to answer these two questions below. How does this new learning that my reactions and feelings towards COVID-19 were normal after all help me? Paano nakatulong sa inyo ang realization or ang learning na ang mga naramdaman nyo during lockdown this past few months is normal? Ngayon na na-realize nyo na nararamdaman din ito ng ibang tao na this is the response as a human being to those situations, paano ito nakatulong? And then, number 2, how can you apply this learning to your life, especially after experiencing such a pandemic? Paano nyo i-apply ang panibagong learning na ito sa inyong mga buhay? So, I will give you a few minutes, or you could screenshot, or you could take down notes, take down or write down these questions so you could answer it later on. You can pause this video. I want you to read your letter again. Compare how you feel now that you know those feelings were normal and valid. And say to yourself, my feelings are valid. My reactions are normal. And my feelings and reactions are valid and normal. It makes you human. So I want to leave this one-liner. It's okay not to be okay. So here are the references for the pictures and other contents of this module. So this is Ma'am Patrice A. Flores of Dagupan City National High School, Senior High School. And I want to thank you all for listening and for others watching. So again, thank you, and that is Module 1 of our PFA modules, and see you again next session.